Born in the USA, but I wasn't. I was born in the UK, and my name's Neve, and I'm here with Radio.co. But why am I talking about UK versus US? Here at Radio.co, we are equally as interested in American radio and its trends and quirks as we are in the UK radio scene. So, being quite the transatlantic company, we thought it might be a little fun idea to compare the similarities and differences between UK radio and US radio. And we do promise that this video won't be biased, because after all, I don't even think I'm that British. I mean, I think you can barely tell, to be honest with you.
This video is made by Radio.co. To start your free Radio.co trial in seconds, head to Radio.co and click on the pricing page.
So here's the thing. The USA is obviously massive compared to the UK. As such, it does not have one national public broadcaster. I mean, it's kind of difficult to have one voice representing 50 states. Although I guess that's kind of the president's job. Anyway, in the UK, our public service broadcaster is the BBC. It might sound a bit mad to our American audience, but some of our taxes go to funding the BBC. The BBC is, after all, classed as a public service. So the BBC has all sorts of stations with lots of different counties, etc., under its wing, but they're all BBC branded. The USA, on the other hand, is home to literally thousands of stations. The closest you've got to public service stations in the USA are university stations and religious stations. Those are classed as public services. So in the UK, alternatives to the BBC, you've got your commercial stations, internet radio stations, community radio stations. I feel like in sitcoms and stuff, you guys seem to think that all us English have is the BBC, and that's wrong, because internet radio stations matter too, okay? They matter. Regulators keep radio hosts in check. They keep it clean in the daytime, and they make sure hosts don't say anything inappropriate, harmful, or offensive. And regulators also work to make sure that broadcasters aren't spreading misinformation. Ofcom regulates AM, FM, and DAB within the UK. In America, though, broadcasts on AM, FM, and DAB are regulated by the FCC. Sorry, it's a lot of abbreviations. Anyway, regulators are the guys that issue licenses so that stations can broadcast legally on these bandwidths. And of course, in the UK and the US, what you can say on these broadcasts differs. So the FCC does not regulate any information provided over the internet, and it is barred by law from trying to prevent the broadcast of any personal view. The Communications Act prohibits the FCC from censoring any broadcasted material as well. In the UK, though, things are quite different. Ofcom is kind of ironclad comparatively. They regulate offensive language, and they provide stations with a format by which they should run the station by. This is probably why shock jock culture isn't really a thing here like it is in the US. The closest we've got is probably LBC, but even then you're unlikely to find a Howard Stern type on there. But there's some quirks and anomalies to this regulation stuff too. Anyway, for example, in the US, it's illegal to broadcast news about a fake hoax or a fake situation, whereas in the UK, that's absolutely fine. The FCC defines a watershed time between the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m, whereas Ofcom just advise broadcasters in the UK to be careful when there might be children listening. When the FCC licenses a radio station on either AM or FM, they will be assigned 3 or 4 call letters. The call letters will begin with either a K or a W. Generally, the K is for most stations west of the Mississippi River, and the W is for stations the east of the Mississippi River. Who knew the Mississippi River, a hotbed of radio goodness? So, American radio stations use these call letters as their radio station's name. Ofcom in the UK, however, does not require stations to be named after its geographical location. And that whole call letter, WKBM 505 in the sky, etc., doesn't exist in the UK. We don't have call letters. We don't. Like we touched on before, given how much bigger the US is than the UK, it's obvious that there's way more radio stations there. To put this into perspective, we got some IBIS World stats for you. IBIS World estimates that the US radio industry is worth $22.4 billion, while the UK radio industry is worth 1.3 $4 billion, give or take. The top 3 biggest radio stations in the UK, incidentally, are BBC stations, Radio 2, Radio 4, Radio 1, and out of 10 of the biggest radio stations, 4 are the BBC, 2 are Bauer, and 4 are global. The BBC also has dominance in local radio stations, so almost every major county has a BBC radio station for it. Okay, I concede, but maybe the stereotype's true. We do like the BBC. The top 3 biggest stations in the US are Washington Top News, KIS-FM, and KBIG-FM. America is also dominated by big radio corporations such as iHeartRadio. So yeah, it's kind of obvious that in the US, radio stations are a little bit more essential, but it's still food for thought. It's still food for thought. Yeah, we like online radio at Radio.co. We do. It's true. We do. So, online radio in both the UK and the US does not actually require a license to broadcast live. However, you will still need a license to play copyrighted music as you would on traditional radio. So, no pinching that Taylor song for your radio show, even if it isn't Taylor's version, okay? Anyway, you're free to say virtually whatever you'd like with online radio, and you're free to structure it however you'd like. Your schedule can look exactly how you'd like it to, so there's a lot more freedom at play. The world's your broadcasting oyster with online radio. Online radio also makes it easier for the two countries to listen to each other's radio stations. For instance, since the introduction of online BBC radio services in America, US listenership has increased. And hey, guess what? If you're interested in independent online radio, well, Radio.co is a pretty good tool for that. We can help you broadcast not only across the pond, but to the world. The world! That's a pretty big audience. Like I said, we're kind of a big deal over there too, so if you're not branching out to the American market, then you're missing out on a big chunk of potential listeners. Remember, we share a lot of the same culture of discussion topics, so as long as you're making sure and being conscious to cater your content to both American and English audiences, you can repurpose it. You can make your show transatlantic just like we are. Catering your content to both British and American audiences is a lot more easy than you'd think. For example, make sure if you're talking about some sort of British slang or something that is just explicitly and unique to Britain, just make sure that you're explaining to your audience in a non-patronising way what it is. Let the American audience in, explain to them. Don't inadvertently alienate your American audience by confusing them, and again, vice versa. You know what I mean. So, what did you think? Did we have our facts right? Did we miss out any key details? Maybe you have experience with both British and American broadcasting. Well, we want your perspective. Head to the comments and let's have it out on the differences between American and English radio. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that jazz. Goodbye, and remember, happy broadcasting, y'all.
And just before you go, have you ever thought about launching your very own internet radio station? Surprisingly, it's a lot easier than you may think, especially when you make the time to chat to myself or a member of the Radio.co team. To do just that, head to our website, radio.co/demo, where I can talk about your plans, any questions you may have, and me and the team can really get you up to speed in launching your own internet radio station in literally minutes. It couldn't be easier. Why not check out some of our webinars, tutorials, help guides situated around me? Or why not visit our website, Radio.co, or even drop me an email, studio@radio.co. Until next time, take care and happy broadcasting.